That check is so obviously fake. Most likely printed it at home, like all of you." When the words came out, they broke the afternoon silence at Premier National Bank like broken glass. When Brittany Coleman tore the $3,847 welfare check in half, she didn't even look up. The pieces fell to the marble counter like birds that had been hurt. Darius Washington did not move. His rough hands, which were scarred from 3 tours in Afghanistan, stayed steady on the edge of the bar. An old Asian woman behind him gasped and fumbled for her phone. The security guard moved his weight around. Others in the store craned their necks. Brittany's blonde highlights stood out in the fluorescent light as she crossed her arms and smiled. "Happily," Darius said in a low voice. "I'd like to talk to your manager." He seemed calm in a way that only comes from having been through a lot worse. Have you ever been so harshly judged by how you look that someone took away your job, right? In front of you. What took place? What happened next took exactly 47 minutes. Brittany didn't know it, but she had just made the worst mistake of her career. As Devin Harris walked out of the back office, he looked like he owned the place. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his tie was too open. He looked like the kind of man who solved problems by force instead of thought. He looked at the torn check, and then at Darius, and his face got serious. Devin's voice had that certain tone of superiority and annoyance in it. "Sir, we have protocols for suspicious documents. Middle managers get better at fake worry-over. Years of practice." His hands stayed flat on the counter. "To fix my check, I need a business number and some tape." Devin laughed out loud. "The company won't waste time on things like this." The words were like smoke in the air. The old woman who had gasped, Mrs. Chen, quietly opened Facebook Live on her phone behind Darius. She had her finger on the stream button. She told them in a whisper, "You all need to see this discrimination happening right now." Her screen. Brittany made a loud noise by tapping her polished nails against the counter over and over again. Tap, 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 as if she were keeping time. With Darius's shame, her boss's badge shone in the light. "Person of the month for March 2024, Devin said. "Look." He spread his legs out wide, blocking Darius's way to the door. "I understand how upset you are, but we can't cash every check that comes through the door. Each and every piece of paper. Not every check or piece of paper." The name of Mrs. Chen's stream showed up on her phone. Veteran is being made fun of. At Premier Bank, 47 views turned into 112. The comments began to scroll. "Oh, this is awful. Get his ID number. Write down everything." He pulled something out of his jacket. It's a move that clearly made Devin tense. But all he did was pull out a leather portfolio. Rich brown leather with gold corner guards. The kind that costs more than most people pay for their car payment. Near the bottom area, the letters DW were raised in gold script. "Things don't seem to make sense." It was Darius. His voice stayed flat and sounding almost like he was talking. "This is a real check from the government. I did 3 tours of duty abroad." Okay, that's something anyone can say. Brittany's voice was full of doubt. "Do you have proof?" The military ID card of Darius was put on the desk. Received the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, and the Combat Infantry Badge. Under the bright lights, the plastic card shone like a small shield. Devin looked at it for a short time. It is also possible to fake IDs. The line behind them was getting longer. A worker in a fancy suit looked at his Rolex with anger in his eyes. A young mother bounced her crying baby while looking at her phone and the fight going on at the counter. There were 312 people who watched Mrs. Chen. Things were getting hot in the comments. "Get the news. This is stereotyping based on race. Get the boss, please." He felt his phone buzz against his jacket. The text reply wasn't long. "The board meeting was moved to 4 p.m. You make the call." He took a quick look at his Omega Seamaster watch, which was very sleek and sparkled in the light moved. 3:04 p.m. for a split second. Put his thumb on the phone screen before putting it back in his pocket. "Devin, I know you're just doing your job," Darius told her, "but I need this problem to be fixed. I also get that you think you should be treated differently." His voice was getting louder, which made people pay more attention to him. In the real world, though, banks work like this. The real world. He had already spent a lot of time in the real world avoiding roadside bombs as you watch friends die in areas far away. Brittany leaned forward, and the crowd could hear her words. This happens all the time. People with fake IDs are trying to cash fake checks. They seem to think we're stupid. Not thieves or con artists. Mrs. Chen changed the position of her phone to get a picture of both Brittany and Devin. It was clear that 543 people had watched her stream. People were beginning to use the hashtag #PremierBankShame in the comments. Ma'am, Darius talked to Brittany right away. It would be great if you wouldn't make assumptions about my character. It's not a guess from me. I am noticing things. In his everyday clothes jeans, a normal t-shirt, and work boots, she pointed. It looks like you have a sketchy check when you come in here and you expect us to hand over thousands of dollars right away, having the same look. The words spread out like a thick fog over the tree. In line, the businessman took out his own phone and began to record. The same thing Mom did. Within seconds, every word, movement, and small emotion was being caught by many cameras. Darius's jaw tightened so little that it was hard to tell. He pressed down a little harder with his hands, which were still flat on the counter, but his voice stayed the same. There were 43 minutes left, he said calmly, mostly to himself. Devin made a face. Still there for what? You have nothing to worry about yet? The door to the branch manager's office was opened with power. Angela Torres came out like a storm cloud, her heels behind her. It sounds like sharp, rapid beats of clicking against marble. Her power suit was pressed to military standards, and her face looked like it was made of stone. What's going on with this? Her voice was loud enough to be heard over the crowd. Devin fixed his tie and looked less sure of himself all of a sudden. Ma'am, we might have a case of scam. It looks like this person is trying to cash what looks like a fake government check. Person, not customer, not warrior. One person. Mrs. Chen's live stream got 1,847 views in an instant. Seeing there were so many comments that she couldn't read them all. This is 2024 America. What's the news? Someone should call company. Torres went around Darius like a lion looking for food. She looked at his work boots, then his plain t-shirt, and finally the torn checkbooks that were lying all over the bar. She picked up one of the pieces and looked at it with a suspicious air. She spoke out loud enough for everyone to hear. These government checks have very specific security features. Watermint had marks, special paper, and microprinting. This, she said, pointing to the torn piece, doesn't feel right. The charge hit Darius like a punch, but his face didn't change. A lot more people had gathered around them. The afternoon rush at the banks was in full swing, but no one was doing business anymore. The show was seen by everyone. Dear sir, need to ask you to leave the building. The words were like a punch to the body. The man in the Rolex stepped closer, and his phone camera started to work, getting Torres's commanding tone. A young girl near the ATM started her own TikTok live stream and sent comments to people who were following her. Darius said, I'm not leaving until this is fixed properly. There was a smile on Torres's face that never reached the eyes. Then I'll have to call the cops because you broke the law. The threat was like tear gas in the air. With her weak hands, Mrs. Chen watched the scene play out on her phone. Her stream had turned into a way to see something bad, something theft. During the day in well-kept buildings with marble floors and security cams, thank you, ma'am. A black customer in their 80s spoke up on the line. It doesn't look right. The man just wants to cash his check. He was spun around by Torres. If you have nothing to do with this deal, sir, please mind your own business. The old man's wife pulled him back by pulling on his sleeve. They left their phones on to record everything. Terrell Torres asked the security guard to come over. Please take care of this gentleman. Leave. Terrell Williams had been a bank guard for 12 years. There was a lot of real scams and crime that he had seen. It also wasn't, but his pay came from Premier National, not from how he felt. Other security guards from all over the city were talking on his radio. Everyday problems and days. It wasn't like this. He came up behind me slowly, his radio in his hand. You heard? The boss, sir. Now everyone was around Darius. Brittany got in the way of him getting to the teller windows. She crossed her arms in victory. Devin stood to the left of him and took out his phone to record what he probably thought would be a normal Exit Torres stood behind him, making it impossible for him to run away. Terrell came up from the right, hesitant but willing to follow through. The picture was taken perfectly by Mrs. Chen's phone. For bank workers are swarming around a single customer like wolves around a hurt deer. 3,000 people watched. The comments were getting out of hand. This is stereotyping based on race. Where is business? Call the news. A mother with 2 small children rushed by, covering their eyes to avoid seeing what was going on. But even she took the time to film with her phone, which added another view to the growing digital record. 38 minutes left, Darius said in a low voice as he looked at his watch again. A lot of people noticed that the Omega Cam Master sparkled in the bright lights. Comments began to show up. That's a 5K watch. Something is wrong. Why is he so calm? He left for what? Asked Torres. Are you threatening us? Brittany laughed and said, probably got something important, to be like a job interview. He'll never get. The mean tone in her voice made a few customers visibly uncomfortable. The teenage TikTok streamer gasped out loud and forgot to whisper, and her followers' comments were full of anger. The young mother in line moved closer, her baby quiet. Now, sensing the tension, she held her phone high and recorded everything, as did the businessman. The elderly black couple, a college student with there were multiple cameras, different angles, and many people watching what was going to happen. Torres pulled out her own phone and said, I'm calling the police. Darius's voice had an odd tone, not one of resignation, but one of anticipation. The branch had become eerily quiet, with no keyboards clicking, phones ringing, or the soft hum of air conditioning. The only sounds were the lack of noise. There was the sound of live stream commentary, and the hum of traffic in downtown Atlanta in the background. Everyone was watching and recording. Devin tried to be serious. Look, buddy, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Walk away and nobody gets hurt. Said this as if it were an armed robbery and not a man trying to cash his disability. Check. Darius looked at Devin for the first time and asked, who do you think is going to get hurt here? Something in his tone made me think of it. Devin stepped back half a step, and Brittany tried to calm things down by saying, some people just don't understand how real banks work. Darius looked at her directly for the first time since she tore his check, and his eyes were calm, almost gentle. You're absolutely right. Some people don't. The way he said it made Brittany step back, because his face showed something that wasn't anger or frustration, but a kind of patient certainty that made her skin crawl. Mrs. Chen's viewer, as the number of comments grew, they were filled with anger and speculation. This is disgusting. File complaints. Share this everywhere. Local news outlets began to pick up the story. Hash at Premier Bank. Shame was a citywide trend. Torres called 911, making sure that everyone could see her do it. Yes. No. I need police at Premier National Bank on Peachtree Street. We have a person refusing to leave our premises. The choice of words wasn't lost on anyone watching. An individual again. Be here in 10 minutes, she said, as if she thought Darius would panic and run away. Instead, he opened his leather portfolio with such precision that everyone stopped and watched. Even Torres stopped talking to listen. Before they got there, Darius said, I think there's something you should see. He took out a single sheet of heavy, expensive paper that is used to print important documents and put it on a table. In a quiet voice, he checked his watch one more time and said, 34 minutes. This time, no one asked him what he meant. The paper lay on the counter between them like a challenge, ready to change everything. In the distance, police sirens started to sound. The paper lay on the counter like a sleeping snake, and Torres stared at it with her well-kept fingers hovering a few inches above the expensive stock. The cameras kept rolling. Mrs. Chen's face lit up. There were 6 or 7 devices recording every moment. The businessman's phone, the teenager's TikTok stream, Facebook Live, and more. What is that supposed to be? Brittany asked, her voice higher than usual. Why don't you find out? Darius's tone was conversational, almost friendly. The branch was very quiet. Even the usual background noises, the hum of computers, the whisper of air conditioning, and the faraway traffic from Peachtree Street sounded muffled. as if the building itself. When Torres finally got a hold of a corner of the paper, her hand shook a little as she turned it over. The color left her face like water running off a broken dam, and her mouth moved back and forth without making a sound. The letterhead hit her like a blow. Premier National Bank Board of Directors. The official seal, which was embossed in gold, seemed to pulse with authority in the fluorescent light. This wasn't a printout from a home computer. It was the real deal paper with watermarks that cost more per sheet than Brittany made in an hour. Devin leaned over her shoulder to read. Devin's reaction was immediate and physical. He stumbled backward and hit a display for premium savings accounts. Brochures were strewn across the marble floor like confetti, their happy promises of financial growth suddenly seeming offensive. What? Brittany grabbed the paper from Torres's numb fingers. What is this supposed to do? Her words died in her throat, like a scream that was being choked to death. There it was in clear black text that seemed to burn itself into her retinas. Darius Washington, Chief Risk Officer and Board Member. There was a long pause like a held breath. Mrs. Chen's livestream had 8,900 viewers, and comments were flooding her screen faster than she could keep up. Holy crap, did you all see that? Asked the digital crowd. They were going crazy. Terrell took off his security cap, and his hand automatically went to the attention position. He had been in the military for 12 years before he got his bank job. So some habits die hard. Now he understood what the businessman with the Rolex had been thinking. That was officer presence, command authority. We whispered to his phone camera. Ladies and gentlemen, we just witnessed the greatest plot twist in the history of banking. A woman near the ATM started laughing, but not because she was laughing, but because she was shocked by an irony that was so perfect it seemed like it was written for her. Her laughter spread through the crowd of customers like ripples in a pond. Torres found her voice first, but it was a croak. This can't be real, she said, but she knew it was real because the paper felt real. The embossing felt real. The watermark felt real. And the growing fear in her stomach was real. Darius reached into his jacket again. This time, no one was tense. They were all just staring with the fascination of people watching a car accident in slow motion, horrified but unable to look away. He pulled out a thick business card. Premier National Bank, Darius Washington, Chief Risk Officer. Below that, a phone number with the area code 404 and an email address that ended in premie-rational.com. Feel free to call and verify, he said in a friendly voice. The offer was more shocking than any shout or threat could have been. Devin was the first to speak up. We had no idea, sir. We had no idea you were what? Black Darius's voice stayed calm, but the word hit like a punch. Damn, said a construction worker in line as he took off his hard hat. Did you mean you didn't know I was important? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was just starting to burn around them. Cameras caught every tiny expression, every awkward shift, and every moment of dawning horror on the faces of Torres, Devin, and Brittany. The teenage TikTok streamer had gained 12,000 followers, whispering commentary that was both excited and shocked. He whispered to his phone camera, "This is better than any movie." The college student with her books was typing quickly on her phone. It's probably posting to all the social media sites she could get to. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. Darius pulled out his phone, but not quickly or urgently. He did it with the calmness of someone who had always known this moment would come. He dialed a number from memory, and the phone barely rang once before a clear voice answered. The bank employees recognized Patricia Wong's name right away. She wasn't just any regional director. She was the Patricia Wong who decided which branches stayed open and which ones closed. Darius put the call on speaker, and Wong's voice could be heard in branch 447 on Peachtree Street. Darius, how's the field research going? Getting good data on customer service protocols? The words hit the bank employees like a ton of bricks. Torres stumbled and grabbed the counter for support. Devin's face turned pale and sweat beat down on his forehead even though it was air-conditioned. Brittany fell into her chair as if her legs had given out. Field research, customer service protocols, the implications hit them like a tsunami. This wasn't a coincidence. The discrimination wasn't against a random customer. It was against someone who was studying discrimination. Very enlightening, Darius said. I think it's time to implement Protocol 7. There was a pause. When Wong spoke again, her voice was sharp, professional, deadly, serious. Confirmed. Implementing now. Do you need me on site? That would be helpful. And Patricia, bring the helicopter. The helicopter? Because if you're on the board of a big bank, you don't sit in Atlanta traffic, you take the helicopter. Tata, 12 minutes. The call ended, and the branch stayed still in tableau. Employees were frozen by how big their mistake was, and customers were recording every second. The realization hit everyone like a heavy blanket. Mrs. Chen's viewer count had jumped past 15,000.
Yes.
And the hashtag Premier Banked Twist was trending across the country. News outlets were picking up the story in real time. The old black man who had earlier tried to defend Darius stepped forward. Young man, he said to Darius, I want to shake your hand. They briefly clasped hands, and dozens of cameras caught the moment of unity. The man's wife was crying, but not because she was sad, but because she was so happy that justice was finally being done. Torres desperately tried to salvage something from the wreckage. Mister, we were just following the rules, Washington, sir. What do we need to be careful about? Darius spoke up, his voice still cool but with a bit of edge. About black veterans? About people who don't look like your normal buyers? This is the word you keep using to talk about people. People who don't look like they have enough cash credibility in your eyes? Each question was like a knife cut, sharp and painful. A lot of customers nodded their heads in agreement, and some actually cheering. Bree found her voice, but it was weak and broken. We had no idea. What did you not know? That was important. And had power? As Darius moved closer to the bar, his presence filled the room like gas expanding. Or you didn't know that everyone who walks through that door, no matter what their job is or how much money they have, deserves basic human dignity? The truth could not be denied, and it was so simple that it was heartbreaking. Teenagers, TikTok, had 18,000 views, seeing. People from all over the country were leaving comments. This is everything. Cold justice was done. It's the most surprising turn of events ever. I'm crying so hard. What a great man this is. Outside in the distance, the unique sound of helicopter blades could be heard. People were leaning against the windows and recording on their phones. The businessman was giving a live report on LinkedIn like a sportscaster calling the biggest game of all time. Devin worked very hard to get back up to a higher place. Sir, we would have known who you were. That is the exact issue. Darius told him to stop. How you treat people depends on what you think about them. There is something fishy about a black soldier with a government check. If the check was written by a white businessman, he would be given coffee and given financial advice. The comment was so true that it was devastating. A number of customers nodded, knowing that what was said was true from their own experiences. Torres's phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts, calls that were missed, and alerts. It's likely that the company communications team was in full crisis mode. Most likely, stock prices were going up and down. There were calls for emergency talks. Then another pulled up outside. Reporters were running toward the building with their cameras. There were thousands of live streams and social media posts that spread the story like wildfire. Darius looked at his watch again and said, 23 minutes. They all understood what he meant this time. It had been 23 minutes since Brittany tore up his check. Since 23 minutes ago, they had done the worst thing they had ever done in their lives. 23 minutes since they made a moment that went viral and people would always remember them. The sound of the helicopter was getting clearer and louder. Through the glass doors, they could see people on the ground holding up their phones to take pictures of the show. Darius gently picked up the torn pieces of his check as he reached across the counter. I'll need some tape, he said in a friendly way. This is still a valid no matter what condition it's in. It's a government document, Brittany said as she fumbled for the tape dispenser. It didn't seem important to have her nails done an hour ago, but now they look silly and pointless. People who were interested in justice, karma, or just a good story made plans to watch Mrs. Chin's Facebook Live. The comments section of her post was a digital party. This is what power looks like. More intelligence than violence. Was the Best thing I've seen all year? Spread this everywhere. The construction worker was telling his friends what was going on. You guys, this guy played chess while they played checkers. In this case, this is how you deal with class bias. She was getting out of a black SUV with two business leaders in fancy clothes standing on either side of the glass doors. She moved, with purpose, and her face was sad. Behind her, the helicopter was landing in the bank's parking lot. Rotors were making a steady pulse that seemed to match the heartbeat of everyone in the group as a whole. Darius said in a low voice, "Showtime." Patricia Wong walked into Premier National Bank like a general taking charge of a battlefield. But he wasn't talking to the bank employees. He was talking to the cameras. The heels of her Louis Vuitton shoes clicked against the marble with military accuracy. Two execs in $1,000 suits stood behind her and watched her every move. Sarah Mitchell, who is a lawyer, and James Liu, who is in charge of corporate relations. The outside the helicopter's rotors were still slowing down, which drew a lot of people who pressed their phones up against the windows to watch. 22,000 people were watching Mrs. Chen's live show. The collapse at Hash Premier Bank was popular across the country. "Hi, Mr. Washington." Wong's voice was like a blade cutting. "Through the branch? I came right away when you called." Torres, Devin, and Brittany became still in the middle of a scene of corporate rage. Terrell had sat down near the door, not sure if he should stop people or not, from getting in or out. The only sound in the quickly empty branch was the hum of the air conditioner. Darius straightened his shoulders. In an instant, he went from acting like a customer who had been wronged to acting like a board member. It was hard to miss how the person had changed. His stance changed. His voice had more force. It grew bigger until he filled the room. "Thanks for coming, Patricia. I've been studying patterns of discrimination in our southeastern areas while out in the field." Wong looked around at everything. The torn there are still a lot of check pieces on the bar, the scared workers and the crowd of customers who were filming. As she took in more information, her face got darker. "What have you learned since then? Important problems with the method?" Darius took out a tablet from his bag and, swiping it, opened files and data charts. It was clear that the company gave the person a high-end device that was loaded with private banking software that only board members could access. "In the past 8 months, I've kept track of cases of discrimination in 47 different areas." The numbers were very clear when they showed up on his screen. Each number was another blow to Torres's career. This quarter, African American customers are 34% less likely to stay with a business. The number of complaints in offices in the Southeast is 3 times higher than the national average. This place, Branch 447, is the worst in the area. Wong took in the information quickly and professionally, and her trained eye saw right away what it all meant. $12.7 million in possible lawsuits for discrimination lawsuits, for federal banking violations under Regulation B of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, especially Section 12.4 about unfair discriminatory practices that are not allowed. FDIC sanctions under Section 8 of the Federal Deposit Insurance Act. The legal accuracy was very high. The legal counsel's Sarah Mitchell was typing quickly on her phone, already making plans for defense and figuring out how much a deal would cost. His face got paler with each number, making it look like James Liu was figuring out how the stock price would change in real time. Torres was able to speak again, but it was a weak whimper. "We were just following normal steps to stop fraud. Protocols?" Even though Darius's voice stayed calm, it had a new air of power that made Wong pay more attention. "I'll read you Part 3.7 of the Premier National Employee Manual, which I helped make better last year." He went to a different screen and could see the official company nameplate at the top. "Anyone who works there and treats people badly because of their race, based on their race, military status, or perceived socioeconomic status will be fired right away without getting any money or perks." The words hit the branch like separate stones in still water, sending waves of understanding through the branch. A number of customers grimaced and nodded, realizing how bad things were. Devin took a step forward. Even though the air conditioning was blasting, sweat was beading on his face. "Please forgive me, sir, but we had no way of knowing. What do you know? That I was important." The question Darius asked hung in the air like a dare. Devin Harris, employee ID 4471, was hired 18 months ago and was moved to assistant manager. Even though 3 customers complained about his attitude toward minority customers, there was white on Devin's face. Wong was taking careful notes on her phone and was probably already writing the letter that was firing him. There was one thing that all of the complaints had in common. The customers were of different races and income levels. None of them were white, and they all felt treated badly during normal exchanges. He swung his finger to a different screen. Brittany Coleman, with the job number 7823. There are records of 2 previous instances of discriminatory behavior in her file. One official report from an older Hispanic woman who thought her Social Security check was being handled in a strange, neat way. This one is from a young black man who wants to open a college savings account for his daughter. Brittany held on to her chair with shaking hands. The teenage TikTok streamer got a great shot of her response. Wong's face turned cold as she realized what was happening. She was whispering to her 25,000 fans, "She's about to get fired on live TV, y'all." This wasn't a one-time thing. This was widespread discrimination that had been going on for a long time. Mr. Washington, what do you think? Should be done? Darius's voice had the weight of absolute authority, the kind that comes from real power and not just being in a place that someone else has. Right away action to fix the problems and complete systemic change, or a suggestion that this branch be closed for good. The statement sounded like the death sentence as it went through the marble halls. Torres let out a loud gasp and put her hand to her throat. "Patricia, you can't lie about the numbers. Every month, 47 million purchases go through this branch. With an average profit margin of 2.3%, we make about $1.08 million a month. But my network of loyal customers puts $8.3 million a year." The business reasoning made sense to Wong, who was nodding along. "We have proof that viral every time there is discrimination. The stock value drops by an average of $2.1 million within 48 hours. The way people are talking about this on social media right now makes it seem like it will go well beyond that level." Nearly 30,000 people were watching Mrs. Chen's Facebook Live at this point. The parking lot was full of local news trucks, making it look like a media circus. The story was going around the world. 12 countries were into Hashad Bank karma. The way Wong looked at Torres was as sharp as a knife. "Please tell me, Miss Torres, how this happened." Torres stuttered, her voice breaking because of the stress. The check seemed sketchy. The customer didn't look like they had that much in a government check. "Don't go." Wong had a cold voice. The customer didn't look like. "Anyone else?" Make that message clearer. Everything was laid open by the question, which showed the unconscious bias that had been driving the whole argument. Torres' mouth moved back and forth without making a sound, like a fish gasping for air. Darius stepped in and kept things very calm. "Marianne, what she means is that I didn't look white enough, rich enough, or spoiled enough to deserve even the most basic customer service." People in the branch could feel how brutally honest the comment was. A number of customers suddenly cheered. The construction worker yelled, "Tell it like it is, brother." Wong quickly pulled out her phone, acting like she was used to making quick choices that could change her life. "James, please write letters of instant termination for employees with IDs 7823 and 4471. Ms. Torres will be sent down Tone Tree level teller starting right away, as long as they finish the required bias training." "Excuse me, ma'am," Brittany said. In a weak voice, "You tore up a board member's government check on live TV," Wong said bluntly. "You're lucky we're not pressing criminal charges for destruction of federal property under Title 18, Section 1441. That statement hit everyone at the same time, Sarah Mitchell said with a grimace. People in the crowd cheered for the quick justice. "But this isn't just about punishment," Darius said, his voice sounding like someone who knew that real change needed more than just consequences. "This is about transformation." He swiped to another screen on his tablet and saw a comprehensive reform proposal, implementing the dignity protocol across all premier national branches. Every customer interaction will follow this protocol. The conversation will be recorded and analyzed by AI systems that pick out discriminatory language. Patterns. Wong gave the proposal the attention it needed. The plan is to fully implement it in 60 days, at an estimated cost of $4.2 million. All employees who deal with customers will have to go through monthly bias training by outside diversity consultants. Next week, the anonymous reporting app SpeakUp Premier launches, with direct access to the board level. The businessman with the Rolex was live streaming the whole thing to his channel. This is how corporate accountability should work. Real consequences and systemic change, not just empty apologies. The corporate machinery moved with surgical precision. Within 30 minutes, Premier National Bank had gone from being a scene of discrimination to a model of institutional accountability. Wong led the immediate response with military precision. Brittany and Devon were led out of the building by security. Their employee badges turned in, and personal items were taken away. Things were hurriedly put into cardboard boxes, and the people still there understood what they meant. Justice was done quickly and in public. Torres stood pale and shaking near the customer service desk, holding a folder with her demotion paperwork. Her corner office keys had already been given to Wong's assistant. "Ms. Torres," Wong said, "you'll report to our training facility Monday morning." She required her to go through bias education, customer service rehabilitation, and probation. "You are lucky to have supervision," a teenage TikTok streamer said to her 32,000 fans as she caught Torres's nod of agreement. This is what accountability looks like in real time. Darius carefully put his reconstructed check on the counter. The tape that held the pieces together looked like scars, a clear sign of what had happened. "I'd like to put this down right now." Wong handled the deal herself, moving her fingers over Brittany's empty computer terminal with work on being efficient. The $3,847 payment into Darius's account went through without a hitch. This was the same transaction that started the whole argument. "Mr. Washington, I'm sorry for this unfair treatment on behalf of the board of directors at Premier National Bank." Dozens of cameras caught the apology, which was shown live to hundreds of thousands of people on a number of channels. The story had come together around Mrs. Chun's Facebook Live. Her comment part was full of responses from all over the world. Darius answered, "I accept your apology. But saying sorry doesn't change anything. What actions do?" Wong gave a quick nod. "The dignity policy is approved by the whole board. Implementation starts right away." She stood up and spoke straight to the crowd of people and cameras. "Imret. National Bank promises to make big changes. Within 60 days, recording systems will be put in at every branch. Bias training has to be done every month. When a customer complains, management will look into it right away." James Liu moved forward. "His training and speech is clear in the way he talks. We're putting in place the Washington Standard, which is named after Mr. Washington, and says that all customers must get the same care, no matter how they look, how rich they seem, or their demographics." The name was important because it honored the man who had shown them how bad they were and made changes that would last. A number of buyers praised the action. Darius took out his tablet again and showed thorough charts for implementation. The app for anonymous reports comes out next week. Customers can tell the company's leaders directly about cases of abuse. Every report is looked at by the board. A law council member named Sarah Mitchell added her voice. "We're working with the NACPAN Veterans Affairs to set up oversight groups. Have our diversity metrics fully open to the public and have a third party audit them every 3 months." The construction worker raised his phone higher so that the alerts could be sent to his friends. "Are you all seeing this? This is the way to make real change. Besides, it's time to fire people and change the whole system." Wong looked at her watch. "Mr. Washington, the board meeting has been moved. It was more important." His answer showed that he was calm and sure of himself, like someone whose values were justice over comfort. As the instant drama ended, the crowd started to thin, but the cameras kept rolling. Mrs. Chen stayed at her post and wrote down everything for her interested audience. A shy young black woman walked up to Darius.
"Ah, sir.
I work at the Wells Fargo across the street. This kind of thing happens all the time. Other banks might need to see what you did here." Darius smiled, which was the first real warmth he'd shown. All afternoon, people make change happen when they want it to, Write down everything. Tell your tales. There should be no way to ignore it. The teenager with the TikTok stream gave a happy smile. This is going viral all over the world. The head dignity protocol is popular all over the world. Wang was working with her team to finish up the last details. Text, and phone calls, flying as the company response machine worked at full speed. In fact, stock prices had gone up 3%. It looks like investors liked proactive means of accountability. Under the fluorescent lights, an old soldier from the crowd stepped forward. His Vietnam War cap could be seen. They shook hands quickly, and many cameras caught the moment of unity.
Son, you did something important here today. You showed them we matter.
The action summed up everything that had been done that day.
Honor.
Respect. Getting noticed. Wang spoke to the people who were still there one last time. Even though Premier National Bank failed today, bad systems can be built on top of them. We promise to earn your trust again by doing things, not just saying things. The branch manager job would stay open until a nationwide search was completed. With cultural sensitivity and diversity as the most important qualities, the whole southeastern area would be looked at right away. As the crowd broke up, Terrell, the security guard, walked up to Darius. "Please let me, I'm sorry. I really should have talked." Darius answered, "You were in a terrible spot. But remember that doing the right thing is more important than doing what you're told next time." The talk wasn't long, but it was important. This is another example of the bigger lessons we learned about bravery and morality that day. As the news teams packed up their gear and the last customer finished their business, the branch became surprisingly quiet. Under the electric lights, the marble floors shone, but the mood had changed. Totally different now. Wang gave Darius a proper handshake. "The plane is ready to go. Do you want to go back to headquarters?" In a moment, Darius took one last look at the branch, taking in the scene of change. "Patricia, make sure that all workers have to watch the recordings of what happened today. This should not be a punishment, but an opportunity to learn." She gave a positive nod. "Already planned. We will use this to show how discrimination hurts everyone, customers, workers, and owners, the world." The guy with the Rolex came up to them before he left. "Mr. Washington, I'm telling everyone I know about this story. What you did today is an example of being a leader." Even though the branch went back to normal with temporary workers, the events of the day were still being felt through social media, news stories, and word of mouth. It was possible to deposit the torn check. The unfair workers had to deal with consequences. The system was being put back together again. It was intelligence that won over stupidity. Preparation had won over bias. And the peaceful power had done more than any case could have. Episode 7. The End, and a Call to Action. After 6 months, the change was clear to see. More than 2.3 million people watched Mrs. Chun's Facebook Live video, which became a talking point for people talking about discrimination, respect, and structural change. Her simple act of writing about wrongdoing started a national conversation that went far beyond banking. 12 of the country's largest banks had agreed to follow the hashtag Dignity policy. What started as Premier National's reaction to a crisis has become the standard in the industry, showing that one brave person can change whole institutions. He was the main speaker at the National Banking Diversity Summit, where he shared the stage with civil rights leaders and business professionals. His message stayed the same. Knowing things and getting ready always beat misinformation and assumptions. When MBA students were learning about company responsibility and crisis management, they had to read the Washington incident, From Crisis to Cultural Change, a case study from Harvard Business School. The story is now used to teach students how the actions of one person can lead to changes in the whole system. Complaints about discrimination at Premier Nationals dropped 78% in the next 3 months. Scores for customer happiness hit all-time highs, as investors realized the value of proactive steps for accountability. Stock prices leveled off at 15% above where they were before the incident. Branch 447 on Peachtree Street turned into an odd place where people go to pray, customers specifically, asked to do business there because they wanted to see the place where quiet power had beaten loud prejudice. In terms of customer service, Branch regularly ranked among the best. The Premier Nationals used Brittany Coleman's firing as an example of how unconscious bias can ruin jobs and communities, not as a way to make her look bad. People who work in the banking business learn from her story how to be careful. In its first year, the Speak Up Premier app handled more than 15,000 reports, which led to corrective steps, more training, and overall improvements. Other businesses looked to the anonymous reporting method as a way to deal with discrimination on purpose. After finishing her training on bias, Dora slowly made her way back into management and became an advocate for more inclusive banking practices. She went from being an enemy to a friend, showing that people could be saved if they really wanted to change. The teen won a scholarship to study media at Spelman College for her TikTok video of the event. Darius taught her how to fight smart. Instead of just angry, she thought was cool, that changed the way she reported on social justice. Mrs. Chen was asked to talk about the power of citizen journalism at banking gatherings. Her readiness to write down instances of discrimination had made people responsible where normal oversight had failed. These real-life stories were used to tell a bigger story about how moving stories of individual bravery could change institutions. It showed that Black stories were important, that they could change things, and that one person's reluctance to accepting prejudice could be good for everyone. The construction worker who live-streamed comments became famous in the area. "This man played chess while they played checkers," quote that is used on motivating posters and social media memes all over the world. Veterans groups all over the country use Darius's method to deal with discrimination as an example. Write down everything, carefully get ready, respond in a planned way. His ideas were used in programs that teach people how to be advocates. The case law example federal banking rules were changed by voluntary reforms set up by Premier National. The Washington Standard was put into policy suggestions that banks across the country should follow. However, and this may be the most important thing, the story had become known as proof that change was possible. Many people watched the movie and talked about what it meant in barbershops, coffee shops, college classrooms, and corporate boardrooms. The moment that went viral turned into a movement. Have you seen this kind of abuse happen? Have you ever felt like someone judged you based on how you looked, what you were wearing, your skin color, or your accent? Your story is important. Your voice is strong. Change can come from what you've been through. Tell us about your story in the space below. Tell us about a time when someone didn't see how important you were or ignored you. But also tell us about times when you spoke out, stood up, or just wouldn't take less than what you earned. Keep track of wrongdoing when you see it. Because of its camera, your phone can be used to hold people accountable. Your online life voices that need to be heard can be made louder by platforms. With every view, share, and comment, you put pressure on institutions to change. If you want to hear more stories about how quiet power can beat loud prejudice, subscribe to the Black Voices Speak channel. Be sure to click that bell, because the next story of change could be yours. Stories from real life that matter, stories that touch people, stories that change their minds and hearts. Do not forget what Darius Washington showed that day. You don't know who you are, not estimating. The person you're angry at could be the one who can make everything better. But what's more, that person could be you. Being smart gives you power. Being ready makes you strong. With dignity, you win. Your story is ready to be told.